to Going for Two Live. It's the week one B-League shows, Pick'em show. I am your guy, Dan, at the B-League Says here for Going for Two Live. I am so happy to be back with you for season 2 of the B-League's Pick'em show. So here we go. If this is your first time joining me here, and I'm glad you have, thank you for tuning in to everyone. Today's show is all about our sponsor, Underdog. Promo code GF2 for 100% matching deposit up to $100 on your initial deposit. To go over some props for the week, for week one of the NFL season, I couldn't be happy to do it. Last year we had so much fun, so much success. It was just a hell of a time going over that. And I couldn't be happy to be back for week one this year. Before I do, quick shout out to Jeff, Gladys, Kyle, and the Doc. Much love to you guys. Thank you very much for your off-season support. You guys are fantastic. Big shout out to you guys. Also, please, if you haven't yet, come over to our Discord because, X, or Twitter, if you will, is a fucking cesspool and no one wants any part of that anymore. So come over to Discord. Thank you very much. We have one of the better growing Discords going about. So it's a bunch of fun. Get in all these different channels over there for you and you can find out whatever you need, whether it's start, sit stuff, whether it's trade advice, whether it is prop betting like today. We can get over there, have a discussion and get amongst it, which is what we're here for, right? The fantasy football community is a very fun and strong one, and it's one to get amongst as well. There we go. Gladys, how you going? I am back somewhat. Yes. The man, the myth, the legend. I am back in control in Queens. We are back in Queens and nowhere else at the moment. Thank God. But I couldn't be happy to be back week one. It feels like this offseason went a little bit longer than what others have. It kind of dragged out a bit. It's kind of wild. Maybe that's just me, but a whole bunch of best balls been going on. Shout out for those in the Scott Fish Bowl. I'm representing the Snickers division. I'm not in the Snickers division. It doesn't matter. It's a pretty dope shirt. Doesn't matter. Here we go. Anyway, for those who have joined me again for the first time today, what I do is I go over the higher or lower. Well, I can't actually say, but I can't say over and under. Thank you, Underdog, for your strict vernacular. Drink for every time I screw that one up. Very good. But effectively, I go over the game totals for the week, any news that may affect it, and I go over what the props would be for a game that week. I don't go over every game's props. That'd be lunacy. This is only a 20, 30-minute show max. I am not here forever. I'm just here to give you a couple of props that I like per week based on whatever reason I feel like friggin' giving you. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm going to do. Bypass that explicit. Oh, very good, Dan. Very good. Yeah. Thank you. I'm back. Thank you, Gladys. But yeah, so a couple of the games. You look at week one, obviously there's been some injury concerns over the past couple of days. Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews seems like he's cleared. Travis Kelce, maybe not so much. But there have been a few games that have been like up and out at the moment. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter. It's week one. We have all the reasons in the world. Doesn't really matter. But here we are. We're looking at a few that are out there that have caught my eye. Obviously, Thursday night, Detroit at Kansas over-under of 53.5. That'll tinker a little bit lower, obviously, as the Travis Kelce news starts to fall through. I can imagine that'll lose maybe 4 or 5 points as it would. Kansas at home is still pretty potent. They'll be fine. Tampa at Minnesota. I thought this was quite interesting for 45.5. Tampa's players are all fit and raring to go outside of their, was it Jensen, I think, got injured. He's out for the season on the IR. But obviously Tampa, there's a lot of myth about them because Baker Mayfield, can he or can't he? Look, he had a couple of decent games for the Rams. He's serviceable enough with guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Okay, that's fine, but he wasn't that serviceable with Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, and those were two at the time in their prime peak wide receivers that he couldn't really do a whole bunch with. He still had Nick Chubb, then he's got Rashad White now. I'm not sure that it'll matter too much, but hey, if he can get them to 20, this one's going over, which he should be on the road. Minnesota are pretty giving. Cincy at Cleveland. I thought this was an interesting one. Obviously at Cleveland, I feel like we say this every year. Cleveland's defense got better, but does it? They're still 6-11 most of the time, but here we are. I'm sorry, Jamie, if you're here. I'm not taking shots at Cleveland week one. I'm just saying every year they seem to tell us that their defense is getting better, and yet they don't. But that's at 47.5 at the moment. Washington, I found this one interesting. Washington being only -7 at home versus Arizona with an over-under of 39. we don't know who their quarterback is. Is it Josh Dobbs or Clayton Tune? I still don't really know, and I don't think I'd trust them even if they told me that. That could be like a switch after the first quarter, depending on how that one's tracking. So for Washington only to be -7 with that low of an 39, like, yes, like I get it. This one's going under 39. I am very well prepared to sink my teeth into that, but like -7, jeez, like I don't even know how Arizona scores points in this one. Like that's wild. But either way, the game that I kind of went with for this week's props, I thought it was kind of interesting. Ravens being -10 with an over/under of 44 at home to Houston. Now, we're going to take the low road here because the Ravens being that heavier favorite at home against the rookie quarterback and Josh Dobbs. Thank you, Gladys. Well, shit, like guys spent no time with him this past off season, and he's starting week 1 against the team with a decent defense. Very good. By the way, Washington's DFS DST is I think 2,800. Go nuts. They'll be chalk, so cash only, but whatever. Anyway, -10 at home against the rookie quarterback, like this is really made for the Ravens to eat them up. And I understand like DeMeco Ryans is there and he's going to bring a whole new ethos. Obviously, he's come from San Fran and he's got that homeboy, like I'm a Texans guy through and through in him. He's got that about him. I feel like, he's going to try and toughen that defense up. Like we talked about Dan Campbell last year with Detroit. I don't think it matters because this is a well-oiled machine in the Ravens. Like this is them. Like they're a dark horse for the Super Bowl. I don't know why we aren't talking about them more, but it's one of those things like defensive-minded coach, rookie quarterback, a bunch of who the fuck are your wide receivers? I don't know who they are. That's who we're looking at. And, this game, for 44 to go over, I'm sure it could, but the Ravens could well put up 38 of these. Like the Ravens could just absolutely wipe them down on this, and I'm not that surprised if they do. So I'm very much against Houston on these props, and I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised to hear me say, first up off the bat, pick one for the props on underdog.com, promo code REWIND, promo code GF2. Don't worry about that one. You're not listening to that one. Promo code GF2, 100% match deposit up to $100. CJ Stroud lower than 213.5 passing yards. For what it is. What's up, Jamie? I absolutely did not talk bad about Cleveland earlier. Hope you're well. Look, let's talk this for what it is. 2 for 13, 7 for 60, 2 for 16. That was his preseason. Oh, by the way, you're going to go to Baltimore week 1. Yeah, you're definitely ready. Yeah, you went 2 for 16. You're ready for Baltimore week 1. Yeah, okay, sure, no dramas. That's his preseason, and that's what he's got in front of him. Now you're going to Baltimore, an NFL Super Bowl dark horse, while not having an established core of receivers around him. Like, I don't even know if Robert Woods is playing. Maybe. Nico Collins? Yeah, okay, sure. No worries. Like, he's like the next Kenny Golladay. You heard it here first. Nico Collins, next Kenny Golladay. The guy's a myth. He doesn't exist. He doesn't have an established core around him, and all of a sudden he's going over 200 week 1 against Baltimore on the road. I mean, no. A bottom 8 defense in passing to yards allowed to quarterbacks. They're elite at what they do, even with a banged up team. Like they're that banged up, and they're still like bottom 8 in allowing passing yards. Like that's what they are. They're super tight at home, and I don't see them easing up here on a rookie like this. I really don't see it coming. Pick number 2, I think, is a favorite of mine, and I feel like he's a favorite of those amongst the going for 2 community. Dameon Pierce, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say he's going higher than 66.5 combined yards. Now, I understand Devin Singletary's there, and he might play into this. If the game's going ahead, they might pull Pierce away a little bit. Look, call it garbage time, maybe. Maybe that could happen too, but call it chasing your tail. Call it what you will. Pierce is the Texans' best player at the moment, and I can see them leaning on him heavily and early to do so. Now, there's a good chance he can hit this quota, I feel, before maybe midway through the third period. They're going to have to lean on that run game, and they're going to have to get creative with him to get anything out of the Ravens defense. They're going to have to do it. So there's a good chance he could hit this quota earlier than you think. A year ago, the Ravens did allow the 8th most receptions to the running backs, although not a prolific receiver. He did have 39 total targets for the year. I think he went 39 receptions, 39 targets, 30 receptions, give or take, if I remember correctly. So he does have that. It's something to build on. It is encouraging. It's not going to blow you away, but it's decent. I think they're going to have to get him involved. And I understand Singletary was all right at that at Buffalo, but they can make anyone all right at that. So that's I don't feel like that's a Singletary thing. I think that might have been a Buffalo thing, and that's what we're at. So they'll need him to get better at that part of his game to be more successful. Pick number 3, I think. Yeah, look at me go, Yeti. Yeah, I'm here. I'm going. Going like them Vikings this year for the NFC North. Get on them. Get around them. Pick number 3 for the morning game that I've picked of Baltimore at home to Houston. I am going to get on J.K. Dobbins because I feel like this one is something to look at now. This is lunacy, like higher than half a rushing or receiving touchdown. So basically we're saying J.K. Dobbins to score yes or no. I'm going higher on that. I feel like that's an easy one. Look, for what it's worth, the Texans a year ago coughed up 22 rushing touchdowns and 3 in the air. So 25 touchdowns was the most through 2022. And that's brutal. And I understand it was a lost season. And I understand D'Amico Ryans is in and they'll toughen up, like Rankins, Anderson, Perryman. They've added a little bit of steel to them, but they're not stopping this team. But again, it's a well-oiled machine. A run game like that with Jackson and Dobbins and Gus Edwards to a degree. And now they have passing weapons with them. It's kind of insane to think that they're going to stop them scoring on the ground. And I feel like Dobbins, he's got a bit of a point to prove. I don't want to go the chip on the shoulder route, but he's got a chip on his shoulder. Look, obviously, the drumbeat for him, obviously wanting a new deal, and that's going to speak to him, I think, and he's going to want to get involved in that as much as possible. Yeah, it does mean football's here. If I'm turning up, I absolutely disappear as soon as the Super Bowl is here, and I disappear for that's probably the best 6 months of my life not talking about football. But here we are. We get to talk about prop bets. Want to talk more prop bets? Come join me Monday night for the pregame show with Gladys and Kyle. We are covering, I believe, the Bills at the Jets, which should be a fun one because I get to hear Gladys talk about her love for Aaron Rodgers. Either way. Yeah, so I don't see how Dobbins doesn't score in this game, at least one. I think he's pretty good for that. I find it's weird as well. Also, something to keep note of, his numbers have come up in the last day or two. He's popped up a couple of yards in that combined total. So I think he was at somewhere around that Dameon Pierce mark, 66 mark, and now he's up around 71 total. So he's starting to climb as well. The afternoon games are a little bit more interesting. I feel like there should be a little bit more points in this one. Vegas and Denver was a bit of a push for me. That could be anything. Mind you, Russell Wilson, you goose. Russell Wilson, for those playing on Underdog, he is at 230.5. And I implore people, everybody that I know, always cross-reference your props somewhere else because the value you can get somewhere could be quite telling. On other sites, Russell Wilson was going for like 213.5, Underdog 230 and 230.5. So there we go, Gladys. I got you. Kyle's still on his bender from whatever the Canadian Football League game was going on this weekend. We haven't heard from him since. He was just on the Tim Hortons and he's put himself into a donut and coffee coma. He's gone. That's okay. What up, Jamie? Any idea when Ohio can start betting on the high? No, I have no idea, man. I don't know about Ohio. That's what a weird state you live in, man. Weirdos. Ohio. Oh, hi, oh. There you go. Yeah, so you look at these afternoon games, they're pretty damn good. Like Miami at the Chargers, like that should be, in all fairness, that should be like the game of the week. Like that could be fun as all hell. They're going to give us that whole crappy Tua versus Herbert thing. Oh, who you got? It's like, I don't give a shit. Like they're both freaking awesome. Like just enjoy them for what they are. But an over-under of 51 at the point. Hello, my friend Tequila. Over and under of 51 at that point, I feel like that's going to smash, I think. Obviously, no Jalen Ramsey, and the Dolphins secondary was all right last year. Okay, Rams at Seattle could be anything. This one could be wild. Obviously, no Cooper Kupp at this point. I think he hasn't been ruled out yet, but he probably should be. Seattle. Look, I mean, talk about teams that could shake things up. You had JSN, and obviously Charbonnet, and Adams is coming back to that secondary foot. He had a torn patella, I think. So Seattle could be a team that surprised a lot more. I mean, I know they were surprising last year, but this year it could be even crazier. But, 46.5, that one. The game I picked for this week, funnily enough, was Philly at New England. And I know that doesn't sound like the most appealing game because who knows what the hell's going on with New England at this point. Well, it's not Matt Patricia and Joe Judge calling the shots. It's Bill O'Brien. So we have that to lean on. Devontae Parker. Here's a fun one. Devontae Parker has played the Philadelphia Eagles once, and he went for like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Make what you want of that. 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Parker against the Eagles in only one game. If that's not the craziest, actually, I'll give you a crazy. No, I'll get to that. I'll get to a Saquon stat soon. We're going to talk about Saquon in a little bit. But Devontae Parker popping for 145, 150 and 2 touchdowns got to be the craziest thing in his only appearance against the Eagles. Either way, I found this game a little weird because when you think about it, Juju and Parker and Bourne or Thornton, if they can get the run game going, obviously with Zeke's going to help. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like Zeke, but not a lot of people like LeGarrette Blount. And that guy punched in 22 touchdowns in a season. So, they've got to be similar at this point between the two of them, I think. But either way, there's a lot to not like about the Patriots. And in their division, I feel like they're like the Steelers a year ago. Now, I like the Steelers this year a lot. But when you look at what they had, maybe even Cleveland last year, this is a team that could go 8 wins and still miss out on the playoffs. I feel like that's the same with the Patriots this year. Maybe not the Steelers last year. Maybe. Although it kind of happened, I think. I don't remember that far back because everything in the last 6 months doesn't matter. Anyway, pick one. Mac Jones, lower than 223.5 passing yards. I don't want to heap on the guy because of what happened last year. He had a rough season. Let's not think about it. Obviously, Patricia and Judge, I just mentioned it. No receivers a note to lean on, and some health issues as well. Fandom from his own team. They were calling for his head to be replaced with Bailey Zapps. I couldn't get much worse than that. I absolutely think he's a massive rebound candidate this year. I really do think he's not that bad or as bad as what people think. Matt Corral, new QB1 in fantasy, stop it. Gators on the special sauce down in the south at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Matt Corral. So anyway, look, obviously, that's what's going to happen. I think just not this week. I think he's going to rebound, but just not this week. Philly are going to be damn near unstoppable this year. Let's face it. They don't get worse. They just get better. So I feel like that's going to be happening again. This will be a Belichick type of game, I think, where he's just going to want to run the shit out of it. We've seen those games where he's run it, kill the clock, run it, wear him down, run it. I feel like that's what's going to happen this game. It's going to be a very slow game. I can see that. And they're going to try and exploit Philly's fitness late in the game in week 1. I don't think it'll matter. Jones, for what it is, he did average 214 yards per game last year. Another 10 seems feasible, but not against his team. Scarily enough, though, his home road splits were, they were worse. So his road home splits for yards per game were worse. So he was better on the road. He was about 195 yards per game at Foxborough. That's his total. I'll take the unders here now. Jones's numbers have come up to about 229.5. So people wanting to get on the higher mark, which is kind of, I don't get it. I'm just going to keep hitting the over. I'm just going to keep hitting the unders on this one. People are hitting the over. They've brought it up about 6 points. I wrote this out last night. So he's gone from 223 to 229. And that was this morning. So make of that what you will. People are going over on that. I just, take the 229. Don't be a sucker like me at 213. Go under on 229 now. You get another 6-yard buffer. So whatever. Just a even better reason to smash on that one. Here's another one which kind of sucks because I checked this one out because it changed on me this morning. But hey, whatever. Devontae Smith, lower than 5 receptions. Now, to be fair, I think 5 is on the money. And I think it is on the money so much that yesterday's line dropped back down to 4.5. So they're saying 5 as well. So that's a push at this point, but it was at 4. It was at 5 last night. It's come down half a point. So I think people would go on the unders of that. So, if you feel like you can hit 5, and again, I feel like 5 is the good line for him. And I agree with the bet makers on this one, but no source or natural. Yeah, good. Okay. Either way. But yeah, I feel like, be my guest to go over here at 4.5 if you think 5 is the number. I just don't think he's going more than 5, which is where they had him at last night. Look, he had a decent end to the season. And just for what it's worth, Devonta Smith, he's had 11 games out of 34 regular season games with 6 or more receptions. So when the line was at 5, we're looking for 6 or 6 the common number. So 6 more receptions in that regard. So 1 in every 3 games for his career, he went over 5 receptions, which is great. Especially into his, 3rd year or give or take. And of those 11 games, 4 of them came from November on to close the season out. So he closed the year out well with some high reception games, and that's fantastic. But he's still up 1 week down the next. So Look at his playoff run last year: 6 for 61, 2 for 36, 7 for 100 in the Super Bowl. Like, he's up and down as it is, and I feel like that comes down to Jalen Hurts' numbers as well, because I'm going to go over some of his rushing stats, and you can see what that might have affected Devonta Smith, as it were. So I feel like, look, we could see him, giving what they've got rookie Christian Gonzalez. I think he might give him some problems, and I can see where 5 or 6 can happen. But when it was set at 5, I felt like the under would be it, or would push. So I think it's a slower game, as I said. So for anyone to get like high receiving numbers, I'm not sure that it's there. And Hurts could have a simpler game going forward as well for this week. I just don't see how the Eagles lose, and I don't feel like they're going to get out of second gear week 1 as it would be. Waddle at 67.5 is wild low to me. Yeah, I mean, obviously the abdominal injury might be pause for concern. So if you're preying on people to go, hey, that's low, he's going to smash over in a game that could be high, yeah, sure, I get it. There's also games where like Tyreek Hill goes off for like 160 and leaves everyone else for dead. So Waddle at 67.5 seems about right. 70 to 75 is probably as high as it go if they keep raising it up. The number 3 pick for my afternoon games, Philly at New England. I am going to run with Jalen Hurts higher than 47.5 rushing yards. Overnight, that dropped to 44.5 rushing yards, which makes me even happier because I'm thinking it's going over. I'm going to get that one on fair. How are you? I'm good. Love you too. Faristo and Just Cled. Oh, that's wonderful. On Twitch. Oh, we got Twitch people. I'm all for Twitch. I'm the Twitch king. Not really. Doesn't matter. Either way. So we're going to go over this anyway. So look, to be fair, the Patriots don't give too much up on the ground, to be honest. The quarterbacks average about 20 yards a game as a result. That was in 2022. So I'm not sure that has much to do with them as much as it does Hurts. Like, Hurts is an animal. Hurts' home road splits for what his career are, it is quite telling. So like with 10 or more on the road last year, like so 47, like 47's about right for him. So that seems to be where he's at, and that's at the link. So last season, those numbers seem to jump significantly with an average of 42 yards per game at home and 60 per game on the road. So he was averaging 60 yards per game on the ground, on the road. That might not feel like this is as safe as it can get. I really do. Hurts, if he's going to go higher on the ground, on the road, and we have a game where those numbers are starting to drop, people are taking the under here or the lower. Sorry, underdog. My bad. Can't say under. Can't do that. God forbid. I feel like this one's going to keep going lower and lower, and you should be just hitting the higher and higher on it. Don't feel bad about that. Don't feel bad about going against the grain. So obviously there's 2 primetime games, and this Monday night for the Monday night pregame show, it will be Buffalo at the I keep saying New Jersey Jets. It's that damn J. I can't do it. The New York Jets with an over-under of 46.5 at the moment. That'll swing either way. What exactly are you commentating again, brother? It's a whole bunch of stuff, my man. We're talking about props for the Week 1 NFL fantasy season. That's what we're here for. Thank you for joining in. I don't know if that's Cled or K-Led. Feel free to correct me as we go. Thank you for joining me today. So the Monday night game, we're looking obviously at that. So I stayed away. We're going to look at Dallas at New York Giants. Over under, again, 46.5, which is fantastic. Numbers there. It's kind of weird. So only a few props with this one here going about. Obviously, the 3 that we're going to run, we're going to go with Dak Prescott. I'm going higher than 241.5 passing yards. I'm not normally the one. I think you guys know already. And right, came over to hang with the Twitch homies. Oh, yeah. Oh, Yeti's over here too? Wow. Let's go. Yeah, so obviously, like, I think you guys already know, and you would have seen enough from me last year to know that I'm not the biggest advocate of going higher on a lot of props. I feel like as people, we want people to do better, so we assume they can do better, but never tends to normally happen how we want it to. But I feel like this is one of those games where Dak is primed for, like, he just seems to turn it on against the Giants. It's always week 1. He always tends to, your resident Giants fan, ends up watching us get absolutely slapped by the Cowboys. Looks like the Giants are going to rock out a dual rookie cornerback partnership of Banks and Hawkins. Banks is fantastic. He had a decent offseason as well. Hawkins could be erratic, but he looks okay. That's fine as long as Adoree Jackson's not your cornerback 1, because that seems to be what they were doing. I'll get to you in a minute, JB. I'll pop up there in a sec, mate. But yeah, that's cool for the club development, but it's not ideal against a quarterback looking to bounce back with a revitalized Michael Gallup, new recruit Brandon Cooks, and with the elite CD Lamb. I just feel like when the Cowboys were at their best, they had that trio of receivers. Obviously, they had Cooper there as well, and they kind of got away from what they made them fantastic a year ago. They didn't look like their normal selves, and yet they still won like 12 games, which is kind of wild. So it is what it is. When they're healthy, Prescott fires his best, and that's what he has right now. So the Giants did some last-minute shopping. They added Boogie Basham and Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons, for those who remember the wonderful podcast, the Back Row Giants podcast, would remember a certain podcast host losing his mind at Daniel Jones being picked number 6 and not Isaiah Simmons. Here we are with both of them. Fantastic. But I can see some teething problems early on the horizon for the Giants. Only twice has Prescott failed to meet this quota of over 241.5 on the road at the Giants playing at MetLife. So I think he hit 260 somewhat quite comfortably this week. I think the Giants will give it up quite easily. And look, the Giants will be competitive. They had a good year last year. You're rolling with 2 rookie cornerbacks. That's problematic against this Cowboys team. Pick number 2 is going to go against what everybody wants to happen. I'm going Tony Pollard lower than 70.5 rushing yards. Look, I'm going to be very clear about this. Of late, Pollard has kind of hammered the Giants, and that's cool on the ground. He's hammered them with an average of about 56 yards per game. Doesn't seem like much, but considering he was always like the 1B or Zeke's side piece, for a second running back to hit like 56 on average, it's pretty good for him and bad for them. It says a lot, doesn't it? Pollard has had all but one of his last 4 games versus the Giants going over 70 rushing yards as well. So in terms of form versus opponent, he's right there on the money. The problem is that it'll be his first outing after his leg ankle break. I can't remember what it was. I feel like it was an broken ankle. I haven't seen anything, if at all, much of him this offseason. So we're assuming this guy is going to come out healthy and pick up where he left off. You know how I feel. We spent enough time with the doc on Monday night to know that players don't always come back from injuries as well as they do when they're prior to it happening. So I'm a little concerned about that. So the use that he's going to get as the top guy now could be different to what we expected from where he was before with Zeke. I think we'll get a bit of Rico Dowdle mixed in, maybe some Deuce Vaughn on 3rd and long. I also think his number dropped closer this weekend. So just keep an eye on his numbers when it hits the weekend. I feel like it's going to drop. I mean, you know what the casual punters are like as well. They're going to come and go, okay, Tony Pollard, he had a great year, and I drafted him in my first round and a second round on my redraft. He's going over. His number, I don't think, is not going to be the same. Pick number 3, it's going to be Saquon Barkley. Now, Saquon, I've got some things to say about this guy. So let's just get on with it. Saquon Barkley, lower than 66.5 rushing yards. So for what it's worth, Saquon has never beaten the Cowboys. Ever. Since becoming a Giant, he has never been in a team that has beaten Dallas before. Isn't that wild? In fact, the only time the Giants have won since Saquon has been in a Giant, Saquon was on IR. So he wasn't even there for their only win in like the past 5 or 6 years. Wild when you think about that. So we've got that going for us. Dallas did allow the 10th most yards against running backs in 2022, and Barkley has got something to prove with that. Obviously, that contract holdout earlier, he's going to want to go out and go off. But I can see him probably making more moves in the receiving game than anywhere else on the ground. He has had some success in his past against the Cowboys through the air, and I've got a gut feeling that people would jump on the overs here. So watch this number to fluctuate. Today, his receiving and touchdown props did drop. 19.5 receiving yards is something to gauge as the week goes on. I feel like he can do that quite comfortably against Dallas. And if that's the case, you can probably come away from that rushing yards even more. All right, so we got through those bets. So what are we looking at? The 3 bets that I feel best about, my 3 favorite picks for the week. I do like Jalen Hurts higher than 44.5 rushing yards. I feel like that's something we can get on quite comfortably. I do like Dameon Pierce higher than 66.5 combined yards, and Pollard lower. That's 70.5 rushing yards. I feel like that's a little high at the moment to go over. I'm just going to get to Jamie here in the chat. What are your thoughts on my parlay? And why can't I read that right now? My eyesight is shot. What are your thoughts on my parlay? Dolphins over 14.5 points. Dolphins over half a touchdown. Chargers over 17.5 points. Yeah, I mean, if that game's going over anyway, those two should probably pick up quite well. Seems like a fair. Chargers over 1.5 touchdowns. Yeah, under 61. Yeah, I mean, I think they were given at 51 anyway. So even if they were out at 54, 57, you're still good. 28, what were we talking about? 28, 24 game, give or take. Pays 115, so W money. Yeah, go for it. Why not? Restream bot. Yeti's on every freaking platform. Did you make a season-long entry? I did. I love it. I don't even understand what that means. I'm all over the place. Restream. Yeti, are you the Restream bot? I knew it. I don't even know what that means, Yeti. That's all good. But look, 30 minutes. I've done it again. I'm on the money. Uh-oh, I'm frozen? No, I'm good. I'm on the money with 30 minutes again, and it's fantastic. As always, you can tune in tonight with Jeff and Ryan. We got our Wednesday night show, the Armchair Show. It's been a staple for 5-6 years now. It's fantastic. Tune in tonight. Obviously starts and sits over the weekend with a few cats there. Thursday night show is fantastic as always. That's been going for a few years too, which is all right. As always, you can catch up with me on Monday night with Gladys and Kyle and sometimes a Doc. For the Monday night pregame show, we are covering the Bills at the Jets. One more time for those in the rafters. We're going to go over these props again. Game number 1, I was looking at Houston at Baltimore. CJ Stroud lower than 213.5 passing yards. We got Dameon Pierce higher than 66.5 combined yards. J.K. Dobbins higher than half a receiving rushing touchdown. Book it. Afternoon game I looked at was Philly at New England. Mac Jones lower than 223.5 passing yards. That's come up. I'm still going lower. Against the Eagles at home, we're going Devonta Smith lower than 5 receptions, but that's now a push. It's come down to 4.5. If you think you can go for 5, hit the overs. Go nuts. As well, Jalen Hurts higher than 47.5, which is now down to 44.5 rushing yards. I'm still going higher with that one too. His splits tell us he is more effective on the road rushing than he is at home. Game number 3, we're going Dallas at New York. Dak Prescott higher than 241.5 passing yards. Tony Pollard lower than 70.5 rushing yards. Saquon Barkley lower than 66.5 rushing yards as well. My favorite 3 were Hurts higher than 44.5 rushing, Pierce higher than 66.5 combined, and Pollard lower than 70.5 rushing yards. That was so much fun. I've been missing you guys for the past 6 months. I had a ball. Wow. We got through that 32 minutes with no music. None. Could have done that with some music. No, we just came in raw, Jeff. That's what happened. We did that. But again, as always, hit us up on our YouTube. Obviously, you can join over on Twitch as well. Obviously, find us at Going for Two. Obviously, with our Discord too. Going for Two Discord's been going on for a while now, a couple of years. It's been going strong. Find everything you need there, and you get basic daily shows from us as well, which is cool too. Subscribe on your podcast platform, all that sort of stuff. You can find me on X, I guess. I don't even like it there now. I'm like, it's terrifying. For you. I don't even need for you. That can piss off. But either way, I'm over there at the B-League Says. You can find me there. As always, thank you for coming in and jumping in the comments and having some fun with me again on a Wednesday afternoon. 19 more weeks to go. Either way, looking forward to that off-season too. Thank you very much for tuning in. Cheers. Bye for now.